And we are live, and we just had a near miss. Welcome, everybody. Susan and I were just doing that. I've got Bluetooth headphones for the very first time on this show. And normally, just before the show, I will pop to the bathroom. Fortunately, I realized as I got there that Susan was with me in the bathroom. That was quite close, wasn't it? Right. So, dodge that bullet. Welcome, everybody. As you've probably already realised, on this episode of the BoardCast, I am not Nikki. I am Pete, and I am guest hosting as Nikki is incredibly busy and her voice is starting to go. So we thought it better I take front. We are here today to talk about how to target our ideal clients on social media, which is incredibly important, and we'll talk about that, why that is, in a second. For now, I want to introduce you to our guest and expert, Susan. Susan, would you like to just introduce yourself and let people know what you do?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Pete. I'm Susan. I am a social media coach. I'm also a social media manager and have been a sales and marketing manager. My business is about helping business owners to create authentic content so that they can basically get more sales through social media. In a way that helps them to relate to their ideal client. And mostly I help people focus on video content. But before you can get there, there is so much more that you need to know and do and develop when it comes to your brand and your business and how you use social media. So my coaching covers sort of the whole picture to get you to that point.
Whole kit and caboodle. I love it. And the reason that Nikki and I were so keen to get you onto the show when we were talking about it is, in what I do, obviously I supply Nikki as a supplier. I win a lot of clients through social media. A huge amount, in fact, of our business comes from social media. Many of my clients I know have won business through social media. It's clearly a platform that can work, and it's got huge advantages. It's really suitable to the new way of working. I think as more and more people work in a more distributed fashion, it's harder to make the old ways of a beer after work, a coffee at lunch, popping in to see, much harder to do. Social media, same level of access. People are in fact on there more still.
Yeah.
So you can get to these people who have suddenly become harder to reach, and it's scalable.
Yeah.
One post interacts with 5 people, it interacts with 500, it interacts with 5,000. It's the same level of effort for you, which I just think is a phenomenal thing if you're after a scalable business. So, Susan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, social media is about making your time more effective and efficient. I personally don't do hardly any networking anymore in person because, like you've just said, I can talk to 100 people by making a video compared to one-on-one and get more results from it and connect with more people. I find that social media helps to attract more people rather than you having to go out trying to find them. So although the topic today is how to target your ideal client, the targeting really isn't about you having to go and really look for them. It's still about attracting them through your content and how you use social media.
Yeah, I think especially, I think one of the future episodes we're going to do on this show is going to be about time management, because most owners I know incredibly pressed for time. And I think that's one of the real bonuses of social media. Well, let's get into the reason we're here today. I'm just going to just get started. I'm just going to acknowledge that Mike correctly identifies that, yes, you couldn't have unexperienced a small bathroom faux pas. So thank God that didn't happen. And here's the other thing, actually, Mike, again, with a good point. There are a lot of people who run businesses who are not naturally outgoing, gregarious people. Social media is incredibly suitable for them, isn't it, Susan?
People find that quite odd about me. You put me in a room full of people. If I'm up on the stage talking, it's just like this. If I have to mingle, I don't want to talk. And it's just how I am. So for me, social media, I absolutely love it. My business wouldn't be where it is without social media. So
neither would mine. So let's get into the first question now. When we were practicing the show, you actually said you don't start with the social media platforms. You actually start with the ideal customer, which most people don't know as well as they think they do. So, Susan, how do you go about defining an ideal client when you're working with someone?
So the first thing I do actually, I have a workbook that sometimes people go, "Oh, a workbook," but it's super helpful. I've developed a workbook that's got 50 questions in it, and it sounds a lot, and it does take a little bit of time to really think about it. But the purpose of these questions is to really dig deep into the not just the demographics of your ideal customer, but the
Mm.
psychographics. Get into their mind, get into their behavior, try and visualize you're them. You're trying to establish how they live their lives, what type of media do they like to read and watch, what how do they spend their free time, what type of technology do they use, what's their religious beliefs. There's lots to it that helps you to really dig deep into who your ideal customer is, to then be able to create a summary of that person. And that you don't most businesses don't have just one ideal customer persona. Most of us have at least four. Um,
Mm.
Especially when you offer a range of products and services at different price points for different types of customers as well. We don't all have the same needs. So most of us offer something that's for more than one person. Um, so for me, that's the first thing I do when I work with a client is I give them the questionnaire to think about it and I help them through it when they're not really sure how to build it. Or if they end up building just one persona, I kind of like to double check, are you sure it's just one that you're marketing to?
Yeah, most people have more than one product or more than one target client base. So if you've got one ICP, ideal client profile, I think yes, you probably do need to go back to it. And that 50 questions sounds incredible. Can I ask, Susan? I know obviously you've got a lot of tools. Is that something that people can get access to?
Yeah,
If
yeah, it's absolutely. If someone would like a copy of that, just drop me a message and I can send it to you. Happy to share that. Yeah, no
Very
problem.
kind of you, thank you. So these 50 questions, this sounds like a really, really easy way because I know that a blank sheet when I create content. Oh God, that cursor clicking at me. To have 50 questions like that, I imagine is incredibly useful.
Yeah.
But you talked about that you create this document that you then write up that percent. How do you do that? Now I think you've got a little tool that you're willing to walk us through. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, once you've developed those personas, the next step really is looking at how those people fit into your company's objectives.
Should we
So,
bring up the presentation now? Would that help a little bit?
yeah. So this is just an Excel spreadsheet that's quite easy to replicate. You don't need to lay it out like mine, but it gives you the gist of how you should map out those personas and how to use them so you can decide who you're going to target and where you're going to target them. So you are obviously putting some details of your own industry, where you market your products, where you sell, but looking at what is your actual overarching objective, because your business might be in a different stage of its life cycle. You might be a new business who urgently needs to drive some revenue quite quickly to get off the ground. Your business could be more established and you're now looking to increase the lifetime value of your customers. So it's really thinking, once you know who those people are, even if your business is established and you've not done that exercise before, it's that you can still do this at any time. You then want to come up with a statement of what is it you need to try and achieve. So that's where you fill in your strategy statement and set some SMART goals. We all love some SMART goals, saying obviously what your revenue targets are and things. So
Mm.
from that, um, there's just some other points on here that I include just to look at your own business. What sort of products are you selling? What time of year is it? Do you have any
Mm.
offers on? How are you analysing your data? So it's starting
So
off
you
with what?
actually start with what you want to achieve
Yes.
before you get into the personas in detail, which is really important because we can get carried away chasing the wrong group of people. I've seen clients do that. I'm guessing you have as well,
Yeah.
given that you've put this first. So understand what it is you want to achieve based upon your lifestyle, your company life stage. Yeah,
Yeah.
100% get that. In fact, I'm just going to throw that up there just to really drive it home. What do you want to achieve?
Yeah.
Once you've got that locked in, then how do you tie that into the persona piece?
So then the next step is, after you've got those 50 questions, you take some of the the info that you've put in your document there into here, into a tab about each persona. So I've got 4 on my spreadsheet. And again, this is just a template. You might have 2, you might have more. You give each person a name. For this example, I have 4 that are easy to understand rather than a name like Susan. So a small business owner, a young professional, that one says it's quite small, sorry, a working mother, a university student as examples. So you pop in some of the details of each persona, and then what you need to look at is what are those people's media habits for each persona. So from that, you list all of the possible social media channels that you can think of and other places that they can get information, including like search engines. And it's really important to think about, why are people using those channels? So to use social media effectively, it's not about you pushing out your message just because that person's on there. What does that person want to see on that channel? Because what someone wants to see on Instagram will be different to LinkedIn, for example. And how often,
I was going to say, I think I know exactly what you're talking about now, because when I'm on LinkedIn, I'm very zoned in on understanding what's going on in the market, about creating connections with people, about putting across, my professional abilities. When I'm on Twitter, this sounds wrong, I'm kind of looking for an argument. It's like, I want to find someone who disagrees with me and understand why they disagree with me. Completely different behaviors, even though I'm the same person. Different platforms, different behavior.
Exactly. I mean, I am on, as a social media, I don't like to say expert, guru, whatever, but as someone who's in social media, I'm on absolutely every single channel, and I am in a completely different mindset on each, and I'm quite purposeful with how I use them. And I think a lot of people are now, because we know that social media can eat into your time quite a lot if you're using it aimlessly. So like you say, when you go onto each channel, you go on there to do something in particular. So I would go onto Facebook to connect with friends and family. I'd go onto LinkedIn to look at work-related topics. So you do need to think about that particular person that you've labeled, who is your ideal customer, and what channels are they on, how often do they use them, and what mindset are they in. And then
Well, let me just stop you there for 1 second, Susan, because I think you can feel that this is quite a chunk of work here. And there's been a beautiful comment from Nikki, who hopefully her voice is coming back, but there's a misapprehension, isn't there, that successful businesses on social media are kind of lucky, or they've just got a natural ability and it just works. There's a lot of hard work to making this work, isn't there?
Yeah, it's massive when you do it properly to get actual results. The thing is there are some people who are successful, and they're unconsciously competent. They don't know how or why they're successful. They couldn't explain it to someone else. They might be a natural at a certain channel just because they're comfortable with how that channel works and the format of the content on that channel. For example, I'm really confident on video. So wherever I do something that's video, I'll probably do okay, even without a strategy, just because of who I am. But if you put me onto another channel that involves written words, I need to give it a lot more thought.
Yeah,
So
I think, can I ask now as well, because I think it's good for us to move into the next section now. You told me when we were doing this, we were practicing and running this through, that there was a beautiful example you had about a gym, which if I can just very quickly summarize, because I want to. So you had a gym, they were targeting 25 to 40-year-olds, what you might classically think of as gym bros, in my head, the traditional gym market. But working through what you did here, you had them go back to their client base and they recognized another subset, another persona that they had, which was actually more profitable. Can you just very quickly outline who that was and how that then came through this process?
Yeah, so when you look at a 25 to 45-year-old customer in B2C, they typically aren't loyal. I mean, there's no hard and fast rules, but typically they're less loyal, they're more price conscious, they'll jump to the next new shiny thing, whether that's a gym or any type of business, really. But actually, this particular business had a high proportion of customers who were 45 plus, who actually do tend to be loyal once they join.
Mm,
They've done a lot of research and made a decision, and they don't jump ship just because someone else gives them £5 off. So they're more likely to stay with you. And when we analysed that particular person, thinking about who they are, thinking a 45-year-old business person working full time, a professional with a decent income who is busy and strapped for time, probably has children, maybe around about age 10 to 15.
mm,
So it actually broadened a whole new market because that customer suddenly became more valuable because we were able to introduce new offers, new products, launch a whole new package for their children. So we were
mm.
marketing to that one person, but actually marketing now another service that then gave them more benefits to joining that.
Much lower cost of sale, longer lifetime value.
Yep.
This is a classic one. I think it's the five. Is it what is it? 5 minute work week or something like that. I can't remember what now it is, but that principle of 80% of your revenue tends to come from
Comes from
20% of your
20%.
client base. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the one.
Yeah.
And I think so. What's really interesting for me is that this process isn't just about social media. This can transform your business if you take the time to do this, doesn't it? So you had this new shift of personas. Where, just let's run through an example here. Where were those 45-year-old professional fathers,
They were
platform
actually,
wise?
they were, believe it or not, they're actually on Instagram. And they're
Really?
not using it in the way that you'd think.
Because you described them to me as professionals. My brain went LinkedIn,
Yeah, nope, nope.
but they're also on Insta.
They're on
Interesting.
Instagram following their favourite athlete influencers. And you know, and other influencers that maybe talk about topics they're passionate about, the environment,
Mm,
sustainability, the economy. So they were actually quite easy to target through Instagram. Their wives were on Facebook, and so we were
mm,
able to target the wives of those husbands with the message for the husbands for the kids and make it a whole family message in a sense. So that's what I mean about thinking about the mindset the person's in, even though their demographic and psychographic led you to think they were on LinkedIn,
mm.
the message might not have hit so well on LinkedIn.
Yeah, no, if I was on LinkedIn and someone was trying to sell me gym memberships, they're not going to get my attention. But if I'm
But
on Pinterest quite a lot, if they'd come at me on Pinterest. So that's the other classic thing, isn't it? You assume that everybody's like you
yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
not on Insta, but there's a big enough chunk there for this to work for those people.
yeah.
Okay, this is really interesting. I mean, I'm just going to throw in a quick question actually because um, Mike wants to know if 62-year-olds are also a target for this gym. I don't know why he wants to know that. He's so young. But he does ask another question, which I think really, because you mentioned that Facebook and Insta. So is it better to be more active on fewer channels, or should you be targeting people in a multi-pronged attack? What are your thoughts on this?
So I have a view that you should do a really good job at anything you do, and you should try not to
Mm,
dilute your message, basically. Some people will try to multi-purpose their content and put it absolutely everywhere in the hope that it'll stick somewhere. And that is an approach that could work, but it's not strategic, is it? It's not
mm,
necessarily, you can't measure it as well. My view is you should put your efforts into the one or two, maybe two channels and do them really well. If you've got more resources and more team members to help, then you can create content specific to each channel. But my view is shouldn't really be just posting the same thing everywhere. You want to create content for the person's mindset at the time on that channel, as we know.
mm,
Um, and you might have fewer people on some channels, but if you do
mm,
have the time and resources to create content for them and get some reward, as long as it's cost effective, it's all about measuring your costs, isn't it? How long does it take you to create that content and how much are
mm,
you going to generate in return? So my view is to not spread yourself too thin and to just do a really good job at some places where you know most of your clients are.
mm. Yeah. Okay. I think so. That leads in very logically into the next question, which I think, I mean, I'll just before we do, I'll just throw this up as well because I think it reinforces beautifully. Nikki has been getting more. Her new business, by the way, is to help people sell and acquire businesses. She's getting more people on Instagram than on Twitter, which I again would not have expected. I think that's really interesting. But again, it's because I don't behave that way.
Yeah.
So two real questions, I think, and you can choose the order you take them. How do you figure out where people are? Because is it a market? Do you know market research? Do you have to engage someone such as yourself? Can you ask? How do you know where people are? And then secondly, how do you pick which one to start with? So which one of those would you like to take first, Susan?
The knowing where people are, I guess there is lots of market research out there that you can
Mm,
look at that tells you that Gen Z's on TikTok and they're
mm,
also the millennials are on Instagram. I do think that it still does come back to understanding your own business and your own
mm,
brand values and your own client avatar. As
mm,
long as you know who they are and you sort of can look up some research to find out where most people are, you actually will find most people on most channels. Most
mm,
people are on about 7 different channels nowadays when you look at the latest research.
really?
So for me, the getting to know which channels they're on, that does just come down to maybe some competitor analysis too. What channels are your
Mm,
competitors on and how are
mm.
they getting results? That's another thing that's important to factor in. So yeah, so that's does that answer your question for that one?
I think it does, yeah. So lean into the market research is the main thing. I guess you can get started by asking really warm, close clients, like who do you follow, what channels are you on? You can ask that to get a bit of an inkling. But research is what I took as the main place to start with. And then that leads us to the second question. I can see you've adjusted where we were looking on the profile. So on your spreadsheets, I'm going to go to that now because I think it's your answer. How do you pick who to focus on and
So
where to focus?
once you've filled out your persona on your spreadsheet, the main and you know where these people are, you then need to think about how high value are they and how easy are they to reach. So you're looking at when it comes to how easy they are to reach, you're considering volume. Where's where are most of these people? If you're choosing one channel,
Mm,
that's your easy to reach, where the majority of those people are on that channel, and your high value, like how much are they going to spend? And once you look at how easy it is to reach them, you can give them a score of between 1 and 10. And how valuable are they to you, as in your
mm,
lifetime value, if that's the goal at the time, or your immediate one-off sale if
mm,
you're looking at some short-term cash flow. So you need to map out their value and how easy they are to reach. And once you've done that for each persona, you then have a nice little graph. And it's you can do this on paper if you want to.
mm,
You're literally just plotting one, two, three, you give them a score and you plot your personas onto a little graph of high value, easy to reach. And then ideally, you want to target your high value, easy to reach customers first. And wherever they are, that's
mm.
where you create your content. So that probably helps to answer the earlier question a bit more clearly, as well as you need to do the research to know which channels they're using and who the majority of those people are. And once you know who they are and where they are, that's the easy to reach part sorted.
Yeah, and then of course, as you say, you pursue the highest value, whatever that may mean to you at the time.
Yes. Because
So
this can change. You might need to plot this at different times a year for different offers, different products, different services, different
mm,
stages in your business model. Your personas won't change necessarily unless you want to launch something new. But this could change depending on what the product or service is that you want to promote. Because again,
yeah,
that all comes back to what are your goals for your
start
business?
with your business goals first, which I think I will just throw that up really there. What do you want to achieve? That's the first thing you have to have in mind. If it's I want to get on social media, take a step back. That's what we're saying here, isn't it? So if I can take a second now and just give what I understood the rough summary was. So you have to start with what you want to achieve. What stage are you at? What do you want from new business, new clients? You want to launch a product to existing? Do you want to upscale the value of what you sell by approaching different markets? Understand what it is you want to achieve, and then using your rather dandy 50-question sheet, identify the key personas involved, and don't forget to look back on your existing client base to make sure there aren't some little like that gym membership, that little nugget of really high value customers that you've not been paying attention to with your existing efforts.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Then using market research, maybe a little bit of questions to people, little competitor analysis, figure out where those personas are.
Yeah.
And once you have those two things, you know how valuable they are, you know how easy they are to reach, shove them on the graph and pick whichever one most suits your ambitions. If you've got a high value, easy to reach, logical, obvious one, but it may be you don't, and you have to be a little more choosy. If that person is on more than one channel,
Yep.
what would your advice be to somebody about which channel to choose?
My advice would be if you're quite new to thinking of social media strategy and content and you're not great at creating different types of content for different psychometrics, go with the one that's most comfortable for you. If you know that
Okay.
they're in multiple places, because you'll make a better job of creating content that you find easy, that you can do more effectively and efficiently, so that you don't have to spend too long on it. And once you've really mastered that, then try and learn different formats for other channels. I mean, it's no secret that TikTok is eventually probably going to take over everyone, but they haven't at the moment. So if you're not comfortable with TikToks, for example, don't just jump on there and start doing that just because you keep hearing it's the latest channel to be on. Because when you do produce content for a channel, it has to be right for that channel. It has to be right for the mindset that the people are in while they're on it. So that would be my advice, would be to go with what works best for you, or if you need to outsource it, if you've got finance and you can, if you've got budget to outsource and get some help, do that.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay. I agree with that, because I know that I would not survive on TikTok. Like, I just, that is way too outgoing for me. Unlike you, there's a certain introversion in me. LinkedIn and Twitter are where I feel very comfortable. But as you say, if people weren't there, it makes sense to outsource or just bite the bullet and go after it. We've
Yes.
actually had a couple of questions come in. So I think I'm just going to throw up these comments here. So we had Mike asking, what data, he's asking detailed questions about Instagram here, which I don't think we've got time to go into now. But there's also an implication from this one. Would people like to know about particular social media platforms? Susan, if you'd be willing to come back in future,
Yeah.
please do let us know in the comments now, because I think there's a lot here to dig into. Now you know where people are targeting, which is what we promised to deliver here. That would be great. Thanks, Mike. I mean, he's my father, so he has to say, no, wait a minute. No, that's not a compliment at all. Right, well, that's that gone. Pooh, you old man. Susan, what is, let's round off now. What is your final number one tip? What is the most practical piece of advice you can give to people?
Oh, my piece of advice, actually, I think I said it to you when we were chatting earlier, is make sure you're not trying to talk to everyone everywhere.
Yeah.
When you talk to everybody with a blanket message that you post in too many different places and it's too generic and it's not specific enough, you don't get any results from that. You need to really, really hone in on your ideal customer and talk to that one person. Everything you create is for that high value, easy to reach person. And you will naturally pick up other people that fall outside of that along the way. But those other people are bonus business and they're not the ones to focus on. Even if you end up getting more and more of them, you might then later change your approach, but continue to talk to your ideal customer no matter what, and don't dilute your message.
Yeah, I think when we talked about this came to my mind, and I'm going to say it now. I don't know if this is actually a Chinese proverb or not, but someone once told me it was, dog that chases two rabbits catches neither.
Exactly.
That's the key. Focus, focus, focus. What I will say now, I will round off in a second. Thank you very much, Susan. Again, if people want to get in touch, if they want to talk to you a bit more about working with you, what's the channel?
My Instagram is Smith Smash Social. That's my sort of businessy brand name, but you can find me here on LinkedIn. Yep, you can. I'm actually everywhere. You can find me everywhere.
As you'd expect.
Yeah.
As you would expect.
Yeah.
Well, I'll also say now we've already had a few people thrown. There's some Insta people, some TikTok people. We've had some thank yous. So just to say, Nick, Nigel, Mike, it's been a pleasure talking to all of you. What I would also say is, if anybody is watching the recording of this, please do still throw in what area you would like Susan to come back and focus on, because we'll give it some time and then we will come back and plan it accordingly. So please do keep throwing the comments in, even if we're not live when you watch back. And with that, I will bid you all adieu. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Cheerio.
Bye.